So we are here with Uli Jon Roth. Uli, how did you even get interested in the guitar in the first place? What was the spark?
I think it was when I first heard the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
And that music really got to me. And I remember learning all the songs by heart, but not having a guitar, not even thinking I would be a musician. I just loved to sing along with that, you know. And sometime later I started the bass because my friend had a band, and then they needed a guitar player. I just picked up the guitar, and for some reason I knew how to play it right away. At least it felt like that.
So how long before you felt proficient enough to join a band?
It was pretty much right away, because I had already, I knew how to play the bass a little, and they were not like virtuosos, and the music was simple. So I think it was very quick, you know. I mean, after a couple of weeks or so, and then we had our first show a few months later. Played like an evening of basically a dance evening. That's what they used to do back then, you know. And we played some rhythm and blues, but also already some Cream and Hendrix. We played Sunshine of Your Love, I remember. And the first song we played was a song by The Shadows, which I loved, yeah. And Rise and Fall of Flingelbud in C major.
What was the band called at that time?
It was called Blue Infinity.
Blue Infinity. Okay.
Yeah.
So
sounds like an Uli kind of name, but I didn't come up with that name. We had an English singer, and the name escapes me at the moment. And I haven't seen him since. But I did speak to him once on the phone, and that was his name. A cool name, I thought.
How long before the Scorpions came into the picture?
That was, I guess, 5 years later.
Mm-hmm.
5 years later, or 4 years later. 4 years
Okay.
later. So yeah, by the time the Scorpions thing happened, I had been playing electric guitar, I think, for 4 years. But a lot of that time, I had really played the classical guitar, you know, finger style.
So now with the Scorpions, you became a recording artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do have your recordings, so can you maybe please introduce some of the things you did and say a few things, few trivial things, anything you wish?
You have this album here. You've even put them in chronological.
I did.
Wow,
I did.
Good.
Yeah. So can you show the album?
You know, I can tell a lot. I can talk a lot about each one, because each one was like a complete journey of discovery. You know, before that album, which was recorded in 1974, before that album we had done a demo. We had a beautiful hall, a school hall, like a theater, quite large theater, with a tremendous stage where we were privileged enough to be able to rehearse, you know. So it was good, even with my band Dawn Road, which is actually missing here because there's no album, but we did do a demo with Dawn Road. Dawn Road was really the forerunner of this in some respects, and we were in that hall recording a demo, and then early 74, I remember it was actually the 1st of April. That's when we went to the studio for the first time, and that was in Munich. Of all places, we had signed a 5-year record contract with this, back then, very large corporation record company called RCA. They don't exist anymore, but back then that was one of the majors, really, you know. And they were a good record company, they were worldwide. And so we had signed the contract for 5 years, meaning 1 album per year kind of thing. And we went into the studio, Musicland, and I remember the first day we were there, I was very disenchanted, because it was a very famous studio, you know, like the Stones recorded there, and Jeff Beck, and a lot of people, because at that time, Munich was a very hip place. You know, a lot of artists, also English artists, went there.
Sure, the Beatles did.
Huh?
The Beatles did.
Did they?
No, they played it.
Yeah,
in
they
Munich.
played the Circus
Yeah.
Corner. Yeah, they did. You know, but a lot of artists used to hang out there. And so this studio was in a big house called Arabella House, and I couldn't believe how small it was. So we set up our stacks there, you know, and then the sound to me, it just sounded awful, because I was used to the sound of the big theater, which sounded gorgeous. Now in a small place with, back then it was also very fashionable to have everything completely dry in the studios. Like they were sucking, these studios were built so that they would suck the lifeblood out of any instrument, you know, making it completely dead. The drums sounded dead, the guitar sounded dead. And I said to this engineer on the first day when we recorded Spears Coming, I said, "This is a horrible guitar sound we're getting here." And he said, "No, this is the best sound in Germany." You know? And I thought, okay. But that's the sound you hear on the album. You know, that's what we got, and it was just literally straight through. Maybe I was being a little overcritical. Back then, these albums were quick. I mean, we did this in a week. You know, I think 5 days recording, 2 days mixing, start to finish, and then the mix. I wasn't satisfied with the vocals. I thought they were too quiet, and the record company saw it the same. And so they said, no, you got to redo the mix of a couple of songs. So Rudolf and I, we went to a studio in Hamburg, and we remixed, I think 2 or 3 tracks in one night. And then that album was finished, and this iconic cover, I guess, I've hated it from the beginning. When I saw it, I said, you can't have a cover like that called Flight to Rainbow, you know? And then I said to Rudolf, because there was a company that did that, a company in Hamburg, and it was their idea. And then Rudolf said, well, they must have listened to the album and that what came out. Thanks a lot, you know.
That's good.
So, but now I've so gotten used to it. It's so, well, it's so ridiculous. But the colors are quite something, and it's the easiest album to sign on. You know, because all the other albums, Scorpions albums are always like black, and they're hard to sign on. This one's always easy, you know. Well, that's pretty much the only good thing about this cover.
So, musically, did things improve in trance?
I think we always improved, you know. In Trance was the second album, and that was pretty much a year later, just over a year later. We did that in the summer. All of our albums were recorded in the summer for some reason, except for Fly the Rainbow, which was in the spring. And for this one, we had hooked up with Dieter Dierks, who later became this very successful producer who did all the big hit songs with the Scorpions, basically, you know, including Hurricane and Winds of Change and all of them. And yeah, we went to his studio in Cologne, near Cologne, which was decidedly a step up. The recording room was much better. I liked the control room better. I still thought that the sound was nowhere near what I really wanted. So I was always very dissatisfied with each album. And I was wondering why people say, oh, this sounds so great. You know, to me it sounded better when we were actually playing live. That sound I don't hear on the albums. So anyways, this album took longer. I think it was a 2-week album. And so you're already 100% longer, and by then it always doubled. Like each one of my albums was double the time length. So here for this album we also did a demo, which was Dieter Dierks' idea, and that was good because it helped us, meaning we worked on the songs beforehand and then we fine-tuned it, you know. And then we recorded it and mixed it, and I was pretty happy with it. Not really totally happy because I remember the thing that I didn't like was I respected Dieter as a producer. He was actually a really good guy, good producer, extremely hard worker. I mean, he worked through the nights like there's no tomorrow. He was already on his 3rd heart attack by then, was 27, because he was such a workaholic. So I didn't copy the Heart Attacks, but I copied his working style, and I also started really working extremely hard in the studios, like fighting for every note. That was good. That was good what he brought to the table there. What I didn't like was on that album that we spent forever. I mean, I think a whole week just getting the backings right, just bass, drums, rhythm guitars, and then all the vocals. And then in the end, I literally only had like less than 2 days for all the lead guitars, and the lead guitars were the complex bit, you know. And so I remember doing this song, "Life's Like a River," and I had written like a 2-part harmony lead, and we just cranked it out in the morning, and I wasn't fully satisfied with it because it wasn't totally in synchronicity, the 2 tracks, you know. And then Dieter, who had run out of time and budget by then, said, "Uli, to every album there is an end." And I said, right. You know, I was actually really upset about that because it could have been better. Other than that, I think it's a good album, you know.
Also, around that time came out something known as The Hunters.
Oh, that was slightly before. That the story, where's your album?
I don't have that one.
Sometimes people can come with that. It's not really an album, it's just 2 sides.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only studio job that we ever did. And what happened was one of the people who worked in Dieter Dirk's office was like a publishing kind of guy. Fred Hook was his name. And back then, people made money with reissuing hits in your own language. You know, even the Beatles did that.
And that was a very common thing in Europe back then.
And particularly for the guys who then had to write the lyrics.
Yeah.
They got 50%. And I think he was one of them. So he asked us, because he saw we were mildly efficient in the studio, he asked, "Can you record this song for me, The Hunters?" You know, and I thought about it, and I thought, maybe why not? You know, so it was really just the drummer, myself, and Francis. Rudolf didn't take part in this, and Klaus sang. And we did 2 songs. One was called "Fox on the Run," which translated into "Fuchs geh voran," and was sung boldly by Klaus. And one I think was called "Money." I don't remember. But I have to say on these, for the first time, I used dual harmony leads. And that's really the sound of In Trance had something to do with the fact that I started getting into that zone, you know. And that was the Hunters thing. When you listen to it, you can tell it's just slightly pre-In Trance. It's already the same band, except for Rudolf wasn't there, you know. But it was okay. My only ever studio job, I think. Then we did In Trance, and then the third one was this baby here, Virgin Killer, with the infamous cover, which you don't have. This is the American version, I think. And that was really my favorite. We recorded it in the summer of '76, and we were pretty much by then at the peak of our game in terms of playing. You know, we had progressed. We had done so many tours in France, England, Germany, endless. You know, driving through Germany. Germany's quite big, and back then there used to be a lot of playing opportunities all over Europe. I mean, England alone, we played clubs at that time, mainly on the first tours, but there were so many clubs. I mean, I remember I think we did like 30 dates or something like that, twice a year in just one country. You know, there was that much to do, and of course we learned a lot. I mean, we were like, you know, I was like 19, 20, 21 with this album. Rudolf was slightly older, as was Klaus. But you're in this phase when you're soaking it all up, you know. And it came easy. I mean, there was never a struggle. It was just so natural and very enjoyable. I loved that year, '76. It was the hottest summer, I remember, in England, and we had a drought, and also in Germany. But it was just great. That was really also the year where we had like started to have like real bigger success on the big stages with the festivals. You know, we supported Kiss and other bands that were bigger than us at that time. But we started to really, you know, clean up on these festivals. And and that's really it was a very important time for the Scorpions, this 1976, you know. And I guess the album had a very intense kind of sound. It's very guitar driven, very vocal driven, and melodic at the same time. So that was that, you know. Then came a time, end of '76, we moved towards this phase, which was 1977, and that was also an interesting year because it was a year of changes. By that time, I started to have other musical ideas. I started to write. Well, that was the year when I started to write like Cesar Chiron and other pieces, and I began to be a little bit bored in the Scorpions framework. You know, a lot of people find that hard to understand, but I was not like really money or success driven. I just really wanted to explore music more freely. And not that the Scorpions were really a commercial band, but it was becoming commercial, and they were going after the success, you know. And I wanted something else. I wanted to be able to be more symphonic and really just play music no holds barred. So a lot of the stuff that I started to write, I couldn't bring to the table because I knew it wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
You know, how could I bring Earthquake to... I remember playing Earthquake, that track, even on the stage in Tokyo, when we recorded Tokyo Tips at the soundcheck, because I had just written it, and trying it out, but I knew this was not the Scorpions. This was different kind of music, you know. And this was, in that year, that process became stronger and stronger. So, again, by the time for the album, it came to the album in the summer, I had already made up my mind that it was time to leave the Scorpions. So, I didn't want to leave them in the lurch because we were such good friends, and I really liked the guys, you know. We were a really good team. So, I asked Francis, we were close friends, I asked him, should I tell the others before or after the album, you know? And he said, tell them after the album. That's what I did, you know? So literally when the album was finished, I went to see Rudolph and Klaus and I said, guys, you know, I love you and leave you, you know, and that's what I did. But then it took another year because I said, go and look for a guitar player, and they didn't. So they just kept booking tour after tour after tour, until I got fed up, and you know, and I said I really want to do my thing now, you know, and so Taken by Force is kind of like an in-between kind of thing. That's why I only have 3 songs there on that album, because my mind was already very far in a different direction, and also I didn't take as much part in the mix and everything. In this one here, I was like connected in every note, you know. It was like really very much my baby as it was a Scorpions baby. With this one I was more detached.
Yeah,
it feels that way too. I mean, I still felt the music, but I didn't quite put as much into it, which was very uncharacteristic for me, but it was like my mind was in a different place. And when I hear that album, I can somehow hear that in my own playing, you know. Cesar Chiron notwithstanding, you know, I mean, but something had changed. And then Tokyo Tapes came about because of a phone call. By then, this album had gone gold in Japan. This was our first gold album, you know. And so the Japanese invited us, as did the Americans. So we had 2 major tours lined up. And here was I,
on the
who had
crossroads.
already left the band, you know, and I said, guys, I just don't want to play anymore, you know. I want to move on and record my album. So Rudolph and Klaus, they spoke to me on the phone at length, because by that time I had even moved away from Hanover, and I had moved to Düsseldorf, where I lived with Monica Dannemann, you know. And it was a strange time, because my mind was basically an electric sun, but we were doing this. So Klaus said, look, let's do a final thing to end this journey together. Let's do a live album in Japan. And after an hour or so, I began to see the light of that, and I said, okay, let's do Japan, but not America. You know. Later on, I thought it would have been good had I done the first American tour. It would have helped me later on for my thing.
Absolutely.
And it would have been fun, but I decided against it because, well, first of all, I wasn't a businessman. Second, I didn't care about the business, and I didn't understand the business either. You know, I was hopeless in these respects. Strategically, it was a very bad move at that time. I should have stayed for another tour. But anyways, that's what resulted, you know, and Tokyo Tapes was the thing that came, and I guess of all the albums that I've been involved with, the Scorpions, this was the most successful, you know. I think it sold 300,000 in France alone, and back then album sales were different from. So they all this was also a gold album then, and yeah. As soon as this was finished, in fact, even before it was finished, in the summer it was mixed. I wasn't involved on the mix on this album because I was working towards the studio to start the Electric Sun stuff, and that was also done in '78. So in '78 we have these two, basically.
Now, people often refer to the albums you did with the Scorpions as the Uli Jon Roth years. How does that make you feel when you hear that?
I think it's just a distinguishing kind of point because that period was so different.
It was.
It's almost like a black and white image. It's still the same band because Klaus and Rudolph were the same, and Klaus and Rudolph went on to write songs that were even better and stronger. They became such a strong songwriting team. You know, it was amazing. But yeah, the period that I was in was just a completely different time. You know, and that's why they make that distinction.
And now on to a completely different path.
Yeah, the Electric Sun started in '78. I wrote most of the material for this album in this year, in '78, pretty much during Tokyo Tapes or whatever. I remember playing a couple of tracks to Klaus even during that time. Well, Electric Sun was, for me, a step into a completely different direction. First of all, I wanted to produce my own albums because I wanted to learn to do my own mistakes. I was dissatisfied with the recording process. The Scorpions, we never spent enough time looking for sounds. And I didn't like the rooms, they were too dead. I wanted big rooms with wooden panels with better guitar sound. You know, so one of the first things I did for Electric Sun was I went through all the major studios in London with my stack and my favorite microphones, set them up, recorded multi-tracks, and I checked them all out. Abbey Road, Air Studios, and guess which one I ended up in? It was Olympic Studios, which was an iconic studio that I had seen some Beatles recordings, you know, Zeppelin had been there, and of course my all-time favorite from that time, Jimmy had recorded Explorer's Love there, and All Along the Watchtower, you know, and that was that room. And I fell in love with that room, not even necessarily because of its history, but because it sounded so good. And they still had the old mixing board in there, which was a very basic mixer, but it had a very nice 10K roll-off EQ, which I liked, and the vibe was good, you know. So that's what we did. We went into that studio. I auditioned for a drummer in London, found a drummer, and started the thing as a three-piece. Because I wanted to work it from the bottom up. I didn't want to remain a three-piece from the beginning because I basically don't like three-piece for live. I find it too basic.
Which is still true today.
Yeah, I like more orchestral. So, but we started as a three-piece, but in the beginning, I layered a lot of guitars. So when you analyze the album, It's way more than a three-piece, you know. But live, we started as a three-piece, and I was always dissatisfied with our live efforts initially because there weren't enough guitar harmonies. There's only so much you can do as one person. Cream were the right band for that because they were structured and geared for that.
Yeah.
My stuff wasn't, you know. It had two beautiful covers by Monica. They were big oil paintings that she did. This one originated, Monica and I, she used to be on a lot of Scorpions gigs. We used to drive together. She had a little sports car. And I remember we were driving home from Switzerland towards Germany across the border. It was way in the night. I was driving, she was sitting there, and she said, I just had a vision. I saw a painting. We're doing an interview. I just had a vision. I saw a painting. And so she saw this in her mind. And she drew it on the piece of paper. It looked pretty much like that already, you know? And I thought, wow, this is, that's really cool. And then she used as a model the fiancée of her brother, Klaus-Peter Dannemann. She was a girl from Tahiti, a dancer, a beautiful person, Leila Watanabe. And unfortunately, that year, just before we finished this album, Leila died. Tragically, she had something, it was something, we don't know what it was. She died in hospital. It was a strange kind of disease which came from nowhere. You know, I think even the doctors didn't know what it was. But it was very tragic, very sad. So Leila ended up, yes, this. Then I thought this would be an interesting idea to have the female force, the male force. You know, red part of the spectrum, the first part of the octave is red and yellow, and then you have the rainbow spectrum gets completed in here in the blue. Paint me one that is the counterpart. You have the female force, you have the male force, you know. She's holding the earth, this is holding the sun, this is related to sun in my hand. And that's what she did. And that's how these paintings originated, you know, and we still have these paintings. She was extremely gifted. She also took some of these photos here. And she made a lot of my stage clothes, actually, including the ones, she took that photo, including the ones that I wore on Tokyo tapes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's extremely insightful.
And she wrote the lyrics for We'll Burn the Sky, you know, which is on this baby.
Yep.
Yeah, she wrote the lyrics because Klaus somehow couldn't come up with lyrics for that song, so he asked me, and I wasn't really in the mood, so I asked Monica, because I knew she was a poet, and I'm glad I did, because it's one of the best Scorpions.
Is she technically credited for that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It says Schenker Dannemann. Yeah.
It didn't stop there.
Electric Sun, this came out in early '79, and we started touring Electric Sun initially as a three-piece, but I relatively quickly got tired of that, brought in more people until we were 8 on stage. You know, I have a problem sometimes. But no, it was somewhere in the middle.
And then there were 8.
Well, except, you know, I want to hear all these harmonies. So of course, with 8 people on stage, you're not actually hearing them. On the stage like that, it just gets too much, you know. I learned that the hard way, you know, and it always looks like a circus. Oh, there comes Uli's circus, you know, and I was oblivious to all that. But this is number 2. This was done in 1980. This album was completely the opposite of anything Scorpions had done, and initially I got some flack for that because my guitars were not distorted. I played clean, you know, almost classical and some people thought, oh, Uli leaving the Scorpions, sure, he's now going to do Virgin Killer times 10. So I did exactly the opposite, you know. So there were people who were disappointed. But afterwards, this became a cult album, and then it sold really well. This one was much more rock-oriented, and it was more like Virgin Killer, with lots of heavy-duty guitar playing. It was a struggle initially to make the album, because, again, I wasn't happy with the guitar sound. I was looking for a week, wasn't happy, and by the end I just canceled all the sessions and took a little break, going to Austria. Then I came back, and then for some reason I just accepted the guitar sound for what it was, you know. I still wasn't quite happy with it, but I thought that was a good album, 1980. And again, Monica painted this picture. We had this one track called Enola Gay, Hiroshima Today, which is about really the aircraft that dropped the bomb at Hiroshima. I knew the story since my dad, who was in the war, he told me a little bit about that, and always rang with me, you know. So one morning I read in the paper, oh, today is the, was it 40th
anniversary?
It was an anniversary. And for some reason I thought, okay, I'm going to write a song now. So I spent all day writing that song, and by the end of the day I had like a 15-minute piece. And I knew that I had something there. So originally, this cover, this painting had an atom bomb here. The atom bomb was here. But somehow I thought it was just overkill. Then I told her to paint that out. That's why we have this blob here. But it's great for signatures. But I still have a photo of the original with the atom bomb there, you know. So yeah, she also painted that, and she was so good with faces. She always made her look better than in real life. All in all, I ended up being proud of that album, but it was a hard album to record. It took a long time, and then this one was twice as hard. But that one was after a sabbatical of a couple of years. I got persuaded to do an album for EMI, and that was Beyond the Astral Skies, and that became my favorite Electric Sun album. It went over some people's heads because it was a little bit way out there, but it certainly was my favorite, and it was a labor of love. It was really, it took a long time to record. I think 1,500 hours I clocked in the studio, I think. But by the end, I was quite happy with it. And again, I love the painting. That's actually the she painted one of the Egyptian sun kings, Akhenaten. Yeah, the husband of Queen Nefertiti. She painted that, and in this painting, and I thought, wow, this is so cool. I can see this like almost like a space traveler for Beyond the Astral Skies. Then I asked her to paint me the middle. I wanted a little space glider for the middle. She did that in the same colors. I still have these paintings. They're just gorgeous to look at. Yeah, we did this album. It was quite a production, and then we went on a big tour.
Which introduced you to the crowds in the United States,
Exactly.
finally.
That was '85, and that was my first American tour. And it took us all over the States. It was a great tour. Quite a lot of people showed up, you know. I mean, by that time in Los Angeles, we drew like 1,500 people or something like that, which was quite decent for a cult band, you know. But still, I came home and we lost so much money because my manager, who was a great manager, but he wasn't so good with money. Not in a bad way, he just didn't understand it really. He was more creative. He was a creative guy, you know. But yeah, so that was not fun because I ended up having to pay for it all, and that was new to me. You know, so I thought, you know, better don't do that again. You know?
Yeah.
It was my first initiation into touring losses, or what it even means, or what can be at stake. We had 16 people on the road and everything, you know, and I was used to doing things in a grand manner because we had a big management contract, and we played big places in England with big production, Hammersmith Odeon, you know, and places like that. So I thought I'll do the same in America, you know. But in America we played clubs. Anyways, it was still a very good experience, and it was a lot of fun, you know. But afterwards, I think our last show was at the Beer Fest in Milwaukee.
Which was on the radio, actually.
Yeah, it was recorded.
Yeah.
After that, even Electric Sun became too much of a straitjacket for me.
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe I should quit rock altogether, because I don't like having to play with the drums all the time. It's like strict time. Coming from the classical, I like the weaving in and out of the pulse of time. I don't necessarily always want the the clockwork thing, you know. I want it more like, you know, more flowing, like our pulses. It's not metronomic, you know. I love metronomic playing, and once you know how to do it, it's nice to play around with it, you know, sometimes speed up a little or slow down. And most bands don't do that, they're afraid of it, you know. But I do it all the time, and did it in Electric Sun to a strong degree. Just use it as an expressive tool. So anyways, I wanted to write symphonies and concertos. So I made the decision in 85 or early 86 to completely quit that business. I did for 13 years. You know, didn't play any shows.
As I was investigating your discography, I came across the next release, which I've never seen, never heard. Sure enough, I found the cover, which I printed out. Would you tell us what that is?
You mean Aquila Suite?
Yes.
That's one of my paintings. That's actually the second painting I ever did. It's an oil painting. And I love birds and wings and stuff like that, you know. So I painted this bird of this, we call it starbird in German, Sternenvogel, and in front of a floating galaxy. And I thought it would be the right kind of cover for a suite of piano pieces that I had written in the summer of 91 or so. You know, like, they were like really fast, like one a day or 2 days or 3 days. Most of these pieces I typed straight into the computer, because back then, you know, I used to write my scores by hand initially, but once I discovered, you know, computer notation, I was hooked on it, you know, and sometimes I just wrote the music straight into the computer, you know, not even touching the keyboard. And that was done like that. It started out really, I wanted to write a series of arpeggio exercises for guitar. So I wrote a couple. And then a couple of these became almost unplayable, because they started to expand. I thought, this is not really even for the guitar. I should do this on the piano. So I started transferring it to the piano, and then I wrote a whole 12 pieces for solo piano, and that was Aquila Suite. It never really got released in a proper fashion. This was almost like a bonus, completely not like any of the other stuff. It's very much in the classical style of the Romantics, you know, Franz Liszt and touch of Chopin, you know. It's this kind of thing. It's another side of me, basically. And yeah, that's how that came about. That was in 1991, in that period where I didn't do concerts. Having said that, in that period I did do, I think, 3 or 4 concerts, but they were all like television things.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
One was a big orchestra thing in 1993 called Symphonic Rock for Europe, where we played with a 100-piece orchestra. That was really exciting. That was the first time I ever did that, and I loved every minute of it. But that was also the only time I ever got scared on the stage. You know, having to play live with a completely clean guitar against these beautiful violins. And by then I didn't have an answer to how to make it sound right. You know, that I found that later. But yeah, that made me nervous, because we were playing complicated stuff. Somehow I got through it, you know, but it makes you sweat a little. And that was recorded, and then that was on German television. And because of that, I got like a really big contract in Japan, because the Japanese record companies saw that, and suddenly I had like 6 offers from the majors, you know, do that. And so I started to record a symphonic album called Soldiers of Grace, which I didn't finish. What I did finish was this one. And that's another painting of mine. It's really just this Pegasus as a painting, you know. I used that brought this forward. But this is Prologue to Symphonic Legends. That's kind of the precursor from these recordings. It's basically an amalgamation or an extract, 45 maybe even just 35 minutes, I don't know, of that period, announcing what was supposed to come, you know. That one sold extremely well in Japan. It was actually my most successful, although here in America most people don't know it, you know. Anyways, it was, for me, it was a transitional phase, but I started working with orchestras, and I've always loved that the most. It's the greatest kick, you know. And I like doing the rock thing on stage, but that to me is just more special.
And you indulge even more in that as the next few releases will show us.
Yeah. Well, we did this one. That was most of it was played live. We did some recordings in Vienna, and some of it was basically jammed live in my studio in Wales. Transcendental Sky Guitar. It's a 2-album kind of journey through what you can do with a sky guitar, basically, you know. I was just exploring the issue no holds barred. There's some classical pieces there. A lot of that was the view from my house and where I lived in Wales, not Wales, in Tunbridge Wells. I used to call it Sky Valley, and I had the most amazing view. And I took all these nice pictures, and a lot of them ended up here in this booklet. It was a gorgeous place and very inspirational. I had a great time there. The actual album was done in my studio in Wales, which I don't even know what that was, 1990, I believe, something
early
like that.
2000s.
It's certainly not a perfect album. It's sounding a little rough at the edges sometimes, but for me it was a transitional period. You know, it's got some cool things, I think. On the whole, I think I could do better today, but back then it was something for me to explore. You know.
Is that when you developed the Sky Guitar around that time?
Oh no, the Sky Guitar is much older. The Sky Guitar dates back to 1982.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, this is Jeff.
Invisible.
We're invisible.
Off camera.
You shouldn't be invisible.
That's better. It's right. Just had a question. That's all.
So no, the Sky Guitar was 82, and that changed a lot of things. The first prototype was built in 83, and that's the one that you see on the late Electric Sun recordings, like the blue Sky Guitar that's on The Night the Master Comes and Beyond the Astral Skies. I started using that guitar. So Beyond the Astral Skies is a hybrid, you know. From then on, it was only Sky Guitar, and this is basically featuring 2 Sky Guitars because I had the 2 7-string guitars, one of which is called Mighty Wing, and the other one is the Rembrandt Sky, you know, but I called it the Phoenix and the Dragon for some reason. 2 different stories. One was more free-flow jamming, the other was more orchestral structured. We also did like Chopin, Mussorgsky, Beethoven, Mozart pieces, alongside Voodoo Child, and like totally bizarre, but somehow it worked, I thought, you know.
Metamorphosis.
The next one, yeah, you don't have the real cover, unfortunately.
I don't.
I think that's the Japanese cover.
That was the Digipack.
This one was a real struggle to do until it was finished. The artwork took forever, but it was one that I was the most happy with when it was finished, because the struggle paid off. It was hard to find the right guitar sound to blend with the orchestra to do the Vivaldi's Four Seasons, you know. And that's what we did. We recorded the whole of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, the guitar playing the lead violin note for note in the right register, and you can only do that on the Sky Guitar because the other guitars would not play high enough. And I don't like it when they play these songs and then these pieces and they transpose the guitar an octave down. To me, it always sounds wrong, you know. So here, that was, I thought, a really good effort, and it was a labor of love, really, that album. Quite unlike anything else I did, you know. Again, not everybody got it. They thought why is he doing that now? You know, but it was just something.
That was the mindset.
It was something I wanted to do, you know, and yeah. And the next one is this piece. That was also a very hard album to record. We recorded that in my studio near Berlin, and it's got beautiful artwork by Uli Jon Roth, was a gifted artist who used to play bass and Electric Sun, and is now with Fair Warning. And yeah, a lot of hard blood went into this album. We had two great vocalists. We had Liz Vandal on this. Her vocals I absolutely adore. She's right up there with the best. And Mark Kadzielawa, who also did a great job on this album.
Oh, he's great.
They were trading vocals. This is like a concept album with orchestra under a dark sky. We recorded the orchestra in my studio in Berlin, which had very, very big and very great sounding rooms. I got a killer guitar sound on that album. On the whole, I wasn't quite pleased with the final outcome because something happened that had never happened to me. We had to stop the mix short because we had shows in New Zealand and our world tour started. And the mix wasn't quite finished because it was so complicated to record. I had kind of done a few early recording mistakes that needed ironing out. You know, by just doing things the wrong way around. I had experimented with a few things that didn't really work, and then I paid a price for that. It cost more time. So I could have gotten a lot more out of that album had we had a decent time for mixing, and we didn't. So I thought it was under-mixed. There's a lot more in it than you can actually hear, you know. And that was really the only time that happened with an album of mine. So to this day, I kind of regret that. I love the artwork, the cover. You cannot really see it here, but when you see it on the internet, it's basically that's kind of a vision I had while we were driving to the Scorpions Wacken concert. There was a huge thunderstorm in northern Germany while we were driving up, and I saw a double rainbow, and I thought, that's it. You have the double rainbow, and then you see all. I saw the cities of the world below. You know, and they were kind of in the twilight, so you don't know, is this the end or the beginning or whatever. And I saw this, and then I started working on it on my computer, and Uli Jon Roth, who's good with computer art and Photoshop, he perfected that. He did all the city and so, and I think I did like these clouds or whatever, you know, but it was mainly his work, and it looks beautiful in real life. So that's probably my favorite of the newer covers, other than the Monica covers.
And then the big return to the Scorpions.
Yeah.
Not directly, but...
No, well, that I mean, there were a few more releases in between, you know. I mean, we had a Jimi Hendrix show on German television with Jack Bruce. We had Wacken with the Scorpions and various other smaller things maybe. But yeah, the next bigger album was this, and the story of how this came about, my Scorpions Revisited, was really my friend Warren de Martini. It was his idea. We were driving to San Diego during a NAMM show. We were driving together because we had a show in San Diego. He was a guest, my guest, I think, you know. And it was very late. I was slumping on the chair, and he was driving through the mountains, and he said, Uli, you know, he's got this draw, this very cute kind of sound. I can't actually do it, you know. It always sounds a little bit like he's almost falling asleep, and I was almost falling asleep. He said, you know, have you thought about, so many people want to hear the early Scorpions, and nobody plays that stuff, you know, and you could do that, you know. And I thought, what a strange idea, you know, to go and reinterpret something I had completely forgotten about. And because I really, once I left the Scorpions, that was for me complete history, you know. I didn't really dwell on it. It was really gone out of my mind, you know. I used to maybe play Cell Sharon occasionally on the live show, but that's pretty much as far as I went. So he said, why don't you do a tour with, you know, that early Scorpions material? Then a little bit later, another friend of mine, Chris Adams, the CEO of Tronicle, who invented the self-tuning guitar, he said, do Tokyo tapes, you know, Tokyo tapes. Okay, but at first I thought, okay, that went into my system, and it took me some time to warm to the idea, and then I thought, why not? This might be really interesting. So we played an American tour, and we tried it, and we recorded the tour. Because I thought, yeah, I want to do a live album anyway. Let's start with the Scorpions. I can do Electric Summer later. I've got so much material, you know. And that's what we did. We did the tour, and it really worked. The audiences loved it, and I really liked it too. I was very surprised, you know, how these songs came to life. And then after the tour, I wasn't quite happy with the recordings yet. I thought we're not quite there yet. Then our drummer, Jamie Little, says, look, all you need to do is go into a controlled environment and play that stuff and record it as if live. I thought he was thinking of a studio. I said, no, I don't want to do this in a studio. I hate the sound of studios. Let's do it in the same place that the new Scorpions were born in 1973. That hall in Germany is still there. Still standing in the same school where we used to rehearse, where we wrote. Like All Night Long was written on that stage. I remember I was just jamming it, and there it was. It just came out, you know, like a baby. And on that stage, and it had a great sound, so I said, let's go there, and let's do it there, you know, and that's what we did. So I rented that hall for 4 days, and all it took was 3 afternoons, and we recorded maybe 25 songs. Each of them maybe 3 times. Some of them, Sails of Sharon was only the first take. We had it. It was right here. No edits, nothing. And so same with Fly the Rainbow. Some others were a little longer. I remember Crying Days, we had at least 5 takes. And then I did some editing. But it was all very live, without an audience. But we had some old friends there. In fact, Lothar Heimberg, the bass player of the first of Lonesome Crow, he was there. Mm-hmm. Jürgen Rosenthal, the guy who played drums on Fly the Rainbow and also on Eloy, and one of my best friends, he was there, you know, on quite a few of the sessions. It was just cool. And as soon as we were in that hall, it felt like old days. It sounded great. They still had the same seats, just like Sun Plaza Hall looked identical. Wow. You know, 40 years later, how cool is that? And so it had a certain nostalgic factor. So I brought my young band, and they're all like young kids, you know. They're like, compared to me, you know, 30 or something like that, but they can really play. And together we brought this to life, you know, with great drums, with 3 guitar players, you know, Nicholas Turman, David Blazinski. We had a great English vocalist, Nathan James, who's now with Inglorious. Great drums with Jamie Little, great bass playing with Uli Jon, and great keyboard playing with Corvin Bond. I had a killer band here for this, and it shows, you know. And then the contract with the record company stipulated an album and a DVD. I didn't have a DVD because I didn't like what we had so far. Mm-hmm. We had one very good TV show from France. It wasn't quite long enough, where we played with Deep Purple at a festival. It was actually excellent, but it wasn't quite long enough. So then my friend Chris said, do Tokyo tapes. And then I had the idea, then somebody told me they're going to demolish Sun Plaza Hall for the Olympic Games. They always build everything new in Tokyo. They've got no concept of past. Everything is like chop and the next thing, you know. I thought, that's a disaster. They want to demolish Sun Plaza Hall, such a great sounding, iconic venue. How can you? Yeah, but that's what they're going to do. So that gave me the idea. So I thought, okay, I'm going to ring up my agent in Japan that did that, she loved the idea. She said, let's go and do that. And let's record it for television there with the Japanese crew. And that's where this baby originated. And that's the latest in the chain. So now we have two revisited. We have Scorpions revisited and Tokyo Tapes revisited. Now this is quite a project because we recorded the show in Sun Plaza Hall in one day, but we also did two other shows in Japan, one in Nagoya and Osaka. We also recorded these sonically, and both came out really good. We played slightly different programs each night, and they sounded different, and our vibe was different. We even had two different drummers because Jamie couldn't make the first one. This basically came now as a Blu-ray and a DVD. But it also comes with this amazing box set, which I don't have, which we're very proud of. Can you bring us the box set?
It's still on.
Okay, now, this is the deluxe product, which they came out with in Germany, and a lot of work went into this. I'm actually very proud of it because it came out so nice. It has, because the original contract stipulated that we had a DVD and an album. So look, we actually have 4 vinyls here. That's Scorpions Revisited as vinyl, right there. And then it's got, I think, 8 of these babies. So it's got Blu-ray for the show. Then it's got several, the 2-track mix for sound. Then it's got here the sounds in Osaka and the gig in Nagoya from the same tour. And this is one of my personal favorites because I used to record, I used to have a Super 8 camera. In fact, I still have that. And it took really good movies, home movies. And I was a bit of an amateur film director. I always loved that. So I recorded like most of the Scorpions tours. I had that camera with me from day one, from our first to our last show. But I never recorded any shows because I was playing. And I'm never in it because I was holding the camera. But I have all these. So I had maybe 20 minutes of Tokyo Tapes. And that's here. That's on this bonus CD, and that stuff has never been published. And it's got some really cool footage which ties in with the Tokyo Tape story. Like when you see the album cover, you can see we're in Hong Kong also, because that's how we came to Tokyo, via Hong Kong. And I've got all this stuff. Or when we're in the temple in Kyoto, one day we made a stop there and we visited Kyoto, and that's all there, you know. So that's pretty cool. And then it has like an 80-page booklet with all sorts of photos from the show. And we had 2 top-level photographers that day for Sun Plaza Hall, and they took a lot of really good shots. So, yeah, and there's a little keychain here, a Sky Guitar keychain, which is quite cute. And a hand signed thing. It took forever signing this one.
I'll bet.
Because I had 1,000 to sign. And, yeah, and they should have been numbered. The record company actually messed up. They said, oh yeah, we're going to number them for you. Then they forgot. But I can guarantee you there's only 1,000 because I can't get any new ones now. And they're almost all gone. You know?
So Uli,
that's the story.
So finally, with so many releases, what is the next step?
The next step, I've got 2 steps up my sleeve. And one is I want to record a new album because I've written 2 albums worth of material. You know, but I need to get into the studio to do that. And it's not something I can just do like overnight, you know. I like to take my time in the studio and get it right. And the other is for live projects. I have two things going. First of all, I'm doing a lot of acoustic stuff now. I've got this 8-string acoustic nylon sky guitar, and I'm probably going to record an album with that. But I can do that on the side. That's not like a big project, but I want to do that. Just for people who are into that kind of stuff. It's, you know, something quite different from rock music. And then I actually want to do what I've wanted to do all along. Once the idea of live albums came up, I want to do this. These three babies take the excerpt, the best tracks, my favorite tracks from these, and make Electric Sun Revisited tour and record it. I'll do the same. That would be very interesting for me to really have a look at that stuff again. And the reason why I'm confident that it works is that Electric Sun has a lot of fans in particularly America, but also in Japan and England and France. And every day people are coming up with these albums to sign, so I know that a lot of people want to hear that music. And if I don't do it, they won't hear it, you know. And so it's a worthwhile project, and it's not going to take a lot of time. All we need to do is have a few rehearsals and extract the best and play that stuff live and record it. And while we're playing it live, we will find the way to dial it in. That's really, that's the way that works the best for me. Play it live and play it slightly differently every day until the full magic emerges, you know. And that's exactly what happened with with this. In fact, I'm regretting now. Back then, when we recorded it in 2015, that was in February, it was pretty much as good as we could do it. Now we've played the program a few more times live. Now we're much better, so I'm already kicking myself.
So it's no longer relevant.
Yeah, well, no, it is relevant because we're playing it live now in order to promote this.
True.
But we're actually doing it better. So night after night, I'm standing there thinking, oh, I wish we had recorded it tonight. And we do record it, but it's something else if you have a DVD and a big production, you know. Things like that don't happen every day, you know. So, but that's, I guess, the bane of my life, you know. Better this way than doing it worse every night.
True, absolutely true. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for this excellent journey throughout your career.
Well, sorry for being so explicit, but it's the first time I've done this kind of retrospective through my own strange history, and each album is so different. I can't figure out why that is, but I guess that's very much me. And so that was interesting. Yeah,
I'm more than positive the fans will appreciate it. Even the people with us here are definitely taken by it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thank you.